Hey guys, so spoiler section. Oh my god, I don't know how long this is going to take, but we're just going to ramble until it's done, is essentially what's going to happen. So,
Definitely starting off at the beginning, I was definitely wasn't quite expecting that at first. I mean, just
which
seeing
are you talking about?
Just
Hawkeye's
Hawkeye's
family
family.
disappearing, or the start
Well, even
in the
both of
spaceship?
both of them. I'm starting from again Hawkeye's family. I mean, at the very beginning. I mean, seeing that. I mean, at first, I mean, that
Yeah,
was very emotional. At first, I'm
like you're wondering
seeing
what
that.
is this? Like you
Yeah.
think this is afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
and he's playing with his family. He's obviously under house arrest, and then all of a
All of a
sudden,
sudden,
like his family just disappears into ash, and you're just like, oh, this is what
what
happened
happened?
after he snapped his fingers. Oh, he lost everyone.
Everyone.
Like I think it was to reinforce the point that there are many families who lost loved ones, and in his case, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was definitely crazy. And then, I mean, definitely, again, also with Tony Stark. I mean, there, of course, he's up in space there, and the ship that he's in. He's like he's there with Nebula
Mm-hmm.
talking. And
like, did you like that whole scene? Like, the whole thing of just like it was fun, right?
Fun, yes.
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 It's fun.
It's fun. But I mean, also you see him there. He's like leaving his memory because I mean he's running out of oxygen and stuff like that, and it's to the point where he thinks he's gonna die, and he's just leaving his memorial pretty much to everyone at that point, as well, just giving his life story to everybody and just thinking and just letting everybody know how much he has for his role and everything that he's done. I mean, he has definitely enjoyed, I mean, doing what he's had to do, but I mean, in the end, I mean, he had nothing else he could do. I mean, and at that point, I really seriously thought, I'm like, well, I mean, if this is what's happening already, I'm like, I already felt like, okay, well, if we're gonna lose someone, I mean,
yeah, like we talked about this afterwards. Like, spoiler again.
Yeah.
Stark dies.
Yeah.
He's fried. The Infinity Stone, when he uses it, it fries him. So, and yeah, he dies. So, you said at that point that, like the very beginning, you figured he was going to be one.
I figured. I mean, he's starting to leave his memorial. I mean, in the end, of course, at that time, they are saved by, of course, Captain Marvel. She definitely takes the whole ship and brings them back down, and he is able to survive it after all of that. But I mean, truly, with how that was going, and just how the story kind of went along with how he felt. I mean, yes, with his family, he didn't want to do anything at first, because at that point, he was happy with his family. He wanted to not lose that. But then,
when they asked him to help at first,
But I mean, he couldn't really sleep with that whole situation. He always had the things on his mind, of course, what he can do to help everything there. And so, of course, he asks, of course, his wife.
And oh God, what's her name? Penny. It's Potts, but is it Penny Potts? God, I should have pulled this up.
Yes. And you're better with most of the names than I am. I remember Potts too. But no, I mean, in the end, of course, I mean, he does end up helping them in the end, which was good.
Like, and again, like, how'd you feel with how, like you felt the conflict, right? You don't think it was over the top or anything?
I mean, no. I mean, with everything that was going on, I mean, again, all those people, everybody that had disappeared, everything that was going on, I mean, I felt like, I mean, if I was in that situation, it probably would be just as emotional and just hard of a situation. But I mean, I can see myself coming off the same way, truly, to be honest.
Yeah. Pepper Potts. There you go. Yeah, I had to look that up because it was going to bother me and it was going to annoy me if I didn't get it. So, anyway. And then, all right, so let's go into when we meet the Hulk, because he doesn't help him first, so he's the one they go to first of all. Like, I was not a fan of this new Hulk. I didn't hate him. Like,
Yes.
don't get me wrong. I didn't hate him. I did think there was a lot of amusing bits with him
Yeah.
and all that, but I don't think it was the best of both worlds. I don't think it was the intelligence mixed with the strength. I think literally the personality pretty much, you know, it took the oomph from the whole hulking out.
Made him,
Like, what do you think?
yeah, I mean, it made him more, I mean, his whole getup, everything, I mean, he was more dressed up, more, coming off more as a human, but kind of more of a huskier, just huge, green human person that had this, a lot of knowledge kind of in a way, and was a little bit softer, I mean, in his attitude and everything. He didn't really come off as Hulk smash.
Yeah, and you know that's the whole I love. You know, I like it when there's conflict between the human side and obviously the Hulk side. I mean, I just like I can see what they're going for here. I just wasn't the biggest fan of it.
And
Yeah,
I can definitely understand that. I mean, it definitely wasn't fully the same, but I mean, it wasn't terrible, but yeah, it just definitely was not the same Hulk. That's for sure.
but yeah, I mean their whole thing involved like so
Getting
okay,
somebody
well
with
yeah.
your brain.
Yeah. We forgot about the whole Ant-Man thing and all that. So Scott Lang, Ant-Man,
Yeah.
he's trapped in the
Trapped
quantum realm, if you remember from the Ant-Man and Wasp movie.
Mhm.
And you wonder how he's going to get out. So
out.
5 minutes later, the van is in this like impound of some sort, and this rat like crosses, it turns on the machine, and it spits him out, and he's just like,
Okay.
yeah.
Ends up
So he
making
goes-
a sign, and there's a security officer who ends up seeing him on the video camera with the sign saying, "Help me."
Yes, and that was funny because that's yeah, it was funny. Like the security, I didn't realize this at first, but the security officer is actually someone who's been in a lot of like comedies, and I forget his name. I'm sure I
Yeah.
could look it up, but it would take too long
A
for
little
this.
more
But yeah,
longer
he's
for-
been in a lot of stuff. He actually has his doctorate. He just decided to pick up acting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Definitely
Anyway,
cool.
but yeah. Anyway, so beyond that, like,
Mhm.
so that's where he figures out. It's just like, what if we went into the quantum realm?
realm.
Because it only
Yeah.
seemed like 5 hours.
Mhm.
Like, what about time travel?
Yeah.
And their first attempts, like, Bruce Banner does not quite get it right.
No.
So instead of sending him back in time, he actually sends time through him. So he comes back as a teenager, an old man, a baby, and then finally himself.
Self again.
And he's just like, someone peed my pants. I don't know if it was the old man me or the baby me.
Or maybe it was just me.
Yeah, so there were funny points in that. Like, I do like all the funny points in there.
Indeed.
But yeah, like after reflecting on, Peter Parker, who, he kind of looked at it like a son almost.
Yeah.
And his disintegration, he decided, no, I gotta help
I
him
gotta
out.
help. Yeah.
And so he does, and they get it right,
Mhm.
which was done like it. And from a normal standpoint, it may have been done maybe a little bit quicker, but I mean, there may have been stuff going
Yeah.
on off screen that we didn't see.
True.
I mean, there was a lot already going on that had to be covered.
Yeah,
So
a lot of story, a lot of situations, and a lot of different characters we're dealing with. So I mean, there was just way too much to get in for a definitely decent running movie for something that's not going to be like 24 hours long or something like that.
yeah,
So,
yeah, because
that's
that's how long it would have taken to get all of the characters the screen time they deserved.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so let's go into obviously the time travel.
Mhm.
And so they split up into three
teams.
Three teams, yeah. Thank you for catching that on me. So, in 2012, there are
Mhm.
3 Infinity Stones there. There's the Mind Stone, which is in the scepter that Loki had.
Mhm.
Then there's the Tesseract.
Mhm.
And then what was the... Oh, yeah, the Time
Time
Stone,
Stone.
because, that's where the whole temple is.
Mhm.
and so so that happened. Like, and this was one of the, like, Banner tries to go get the time stone from the, and obviously that doesn't go well.
Yeah, that definitely did not.
Yeah, but he eventually gets it through, like, eventually telling the I forget what her name is, but the leader of this organization, you know, because you know, like, that Doctor Strange had given up the time stone, and she was just like, if he did it, he did it for a reason. So she gave up the time stone to him.
Yeah,
and that's how he got it.
Yeah, I forgot her name too.
But yeah, you know, yeah. If you haven't seen these movies and we seem like we're rambling, then you're probably not going to like this movie. But if you are a big fan of the MCU and you remember a lot of it, you'll know what we're talking about, and you'll know, and you'll love it. So the best was Rogers getting the Mind Stone from the Scepter, because, like, how he gets it is so funny. Like, so first he takes the Scepter, you know, obviously gets into an elevator, and there's a whole bunch of, you know, SHIELD dudes who, at the time, you know, they didn't know, but they're actually Hydra agents, you know.
Yep.
Look back, Winter Soldier. It'll make sense.
Yep.
So it's funny because how he gets it is he just like, I'm going to take this. I've been told by the director to take point on this. And they're just like, I can't do that, sir. And I'm just like, it's okay. I got this. Heil Hydra. And they're just like, oh, cool. He's on board. We can give it to him.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah. It was...
That was funny.
And you think he gets away, but no. He runs into himself.
Yeah.
And that's just like interesting, because his past self thinks that he's Loki, who's transformed into him.
Indeed.
You know, he eventually does subdue him.
Yep.
He eventually does get it, but he eventually subdues. And then just the funny one-liners, like, it's just like, he looks down on him just like, yeah, that is America's ass.
Indeed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so there was a lot of funny stuff. And did we talk about Thor before the time travel stuff?
No.
No, we didn't. Oh my gosh. All right, so let's go back. We're going to go back here real quick. Like I said, we're going to be rambling a bit. This is not going to be totally in chronological order. No. Again, this movie is so big, so long, has so much stuff going on that it's really hard to you know, get things in order. So we're going to be jumping around. So yeah, they go to get. They're rounding everybody up, so obviously that means Thor. All the Asgardians, they're now living on Earth in this town called. Wow, it was on the tip of my tongue, and then it was gone. Yeah, but they're all living there. You know, half of all the ones who have survived, because as you remember in Infinity War, Thanos killed half of them.
Yeah. And he was definitely. It was definitely funny seeing.
Yeah, you walked in and you're just like, "Whoa, look at that thing! Really? It's like folding in on itself."
His hair is all grown now. His beard is all. He hasn't been taking care of keeping himself shaved or anything. And just this total drunk that just doesn't do anything. It seems like only drinks beer and plays video games with, of course.
I forget their names, but the Rock dude, like in the arena from Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. From
the arena.
And then the slug.
And then the slug or beetle thing or whatever
it was. Yeah.
And it was so funny. It's just like he's bullying me again. And it's just like. I forget what the kid's name or the gamer tag was, but it's just like, hey, you, if you call my friend a bastard again, I will fly over to your house, rip off your arms, and stick them up your butt.
Indeed.
Yes, go run to your father.
Indeed. It was funny. It's kind of messed up. I mean, especially doing it to a child, but I'm like, Okay, it's too funny still, too, at the same time.
Yeah, but you know a real child would be just like, oh, screw you.
Indeed.
So yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, there were, it was funny. It was super funny. All right, so going back to the time travel, so let's see, Stark, he goes back.
Lincoln Stark, yeah.
Yeah,
You're getting
they get it from, try to get the thing from Loki.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work because past Hulk is upset they has to take the stairs, and then he just goes on a rampage, knocks it out of his hand. Loki escapes him, which is a loose end. It's a loose end because technically he didn't get captured, go and get imprisoned in Asgard. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was New Asgard. New Asgard is the town they're now living in on Earth. And so he's escaped. Technically, they could bring him back now.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I wouldn't complain because I mean he was a fan favorite. You loved him. You hated it when they killed him off.
Yeah, technically yes, I did.
And especially the way they killed him off.
Oh, I know, seriously.
Yeah. And so I'm not complaining, but it is a loose end that's just like, are they going to bring him back? Yeah. And I mean, if they do, then great. It was a loose end that I'm not sure. I'm sure a lot of people caught, but I'm not sure if anyone actually grasped the whole relevance of it. Mm-hmm. So there's a possibility in the MCU that Loki could be coming back because of that. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I guess it also depends on when exactly they change the timelines, because again, they talked about, you know, branching timelines, and to save bad timelines from forming, you know, they had to return the stones back in a certain. So I don't know. It's a possibility, but it may not be. It may have been explained away by that, but there's a possibility Loki could be returning. So there's that. But yeah, he did not get his. So him and who was with him? So the Ancient One, Rogers, Mindstone,
Stark and Lang, and let's see.
Oh yeah, so yeah, Captain America and Stark. They have to go to SHIELD headquarters in 1970 with the last of their PIM particles.
Yeah.
And they have to get more because literally, like they failed on that time, and if they don't get another shot, then they're screwed.
Yep.
So he goes in there, and so Stark meets his father. Like, what did you think of that?
I thought it was an interesting part there. I mean, it'd be kind of cool. I mean, if you're in that situation, you get to meet your father there.
But I mean, I'm not sure if you remember from like the other ones. He had a very complicated. Like he was his father, but he wasn't exactly like he wasn't very affectionate with his father, and when you talk about, I mean, he was when he found out about their deaths and who killed them and all that. I mean, but it was a complicated relationship. And what do you think?
I mean, I could.
So from what you saw there, though, like, how did you feel?
From that point, I mean, he knew who he was, of course, and I mean, after knowing what happened, everything, I mean, after all this time, being able to see him again, talk to him and everything, it kind of brought those emotions back.
That his mom was pregnant with him
at the time,
and was going to name him some silly name. Talked him out of it.
Indeed. But I mean, of course, his father is like, he recognizes him. He looks familiar to him in a way, but of course he didn't necessarily know who he was. But in the end, of course, when he's like, he's like, happy to see him, and he ends up hugging him and everything there before they take off. It's
just like, I really appreciate you, everything you've done for our country and all that. Just trying to save face and not look weird.
Indeed.
And I like that Jervis, his computers, the younger Starks, was named after his dad's chauffeur. Like, did you catch that?
That part I didn't actually.
Yeah, like he just like, that's what the name of his chauffeur was. He called him by name, Jarvis.
No, that part I didn't catch.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, and then obviously so he gets his stone that way. You know, it's just locked up. He just goes in and, you know, talks to his father. They have a nice conversation. They part ways. You know, and then Rogers, he goes in. He gets the stone he needs to, but then he sees, you know, the love of his life. You know, because he fell asleep for like 40 years. Woke up and his love was dead. He had not aged.
Yep.
But yeah, he sees her. She's older, but he sees her, and he's just. I think that's where the idea formulated. Like he later, well, I'll cover this later, but yeah, where he decides to go back.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they get their stones. So that goes to Nebula and War Machine, and they go back to Guardians of the Galaxy 1, where Peter takes the first stone. I forget which one that was. It was Power Stone. Yeah, the Power Stone. You know, and there's something there that was a little bit weird. Like I get. So it was there. So I guess it's explained that there's a connection between the two nebulas.
Yeah.
You know, which I mean makes sense because they're with the same network and all that. But I mean, just the whole thing of like a memory just randomly showing and then
from the past one or coming from the future one, but through the past one. Yeah, that one was a little weird.
And then like basically, it sets him on this path of he realizes what they're going to do. And so he has to go forward in time and, you know, obviously get the stones that way. And, I mean, if it wasn't for that, there would be no movie. Like, it would just be them trying to catch the stones.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's one of those things that seemed a little bit off to me. It was one of those where suspension of belief can only go so far. Like, what would you think of that personally?
I mean, well, technically, yeah. I mean, definitely Thanos had to be definitely still a little bit more in there. I mean, this may not have been more about Thanos. It was more about, of course, our heroes, definitely. But, I mean, with the suspense, with everything going on, I mean, there still had to be some kind of a major thing happening with him included with the story in order for everything to definitely go.
Well, no, I mean Thanos was always going to be part of it. Like that was the whole point.
I get that, but I'm just saying. I mean, in this case, I mean, it would have been just definitely without. I mean, everything coming together the way it did. I mean, it definitely. I don't think would have gone as well. Definitely with the story with everybody.
So you thought that the whole Nebula's connection, like...
Well, that part, I mean, it was weird still. I'm seeing that part too. But, I mean, it's still, I mean, if they didn't have that part necessarily, it didn't give him the idea that, of course, what's going on and technically going into the... venturing back or to get back to try to stop what was happening.
I can see that. I think there would have been other ways for them to do it though that would have been better and seemed less contrived.
Still understand that, but I mean, again, still with everything way they did everything. I mean, it's still for what it was. It definitely was still good for what it was. Everything.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, and well, going back, so they get it from the temple, and. So Nebula, she can't go back because of the connection she has. So essentially what happens is she gets captured and so the past Nebula trades places
with her. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, that I liked, and so they all come back. They all got their stones. They all come out at the same time. And then speaking of Thanos, wow. So we didn't even cover the most important part of the beginning.
Yeah.
Thanos literally getting killed. Like they find him through some sort of powerful energy signature. And apparently it was him destroying the stones. Yeah. And it pretty much crippled half of his body. and they ambush him, and then Thor cuts off his head.
Yep.
You know, and you think that's the end, but it's
Nope.
Nope. So anyway, yeah, they have to go back, and that's what starts this whole thing.
I mean, it goes forward 5 years later after Avengers.
Yes, yes,
is what it is. And so, I mean, they have been living their life. It's been kind of hokey for some people. It's been bad for some people, but I mean, some of them have learned to kind of go on from where they were, but it's been very sad, depressing for many of them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like Captain America is pretty much running a group of like things, telling people to move on and all that kind of stuff, and it's nuts. Like Black Widow's the head of essentially Shield now, and she's trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just see they're just so broken. Like, and Hawkeye, he just becomes so broken with the thing that he essentially loses it and starts killing like I'm assuming that these were bad, like probably mobsters that he's going after, but I mean he's still killing them.
Yeah.
Like just brutalizing and killing them.
Indeed.
Yeah, so but they eventually bring everyone on board. So anyway, so they go back and they put it onto one of Stark's gloves. You know, and who was the first one to get it? It was. Oh God! Wait, hold on. We forgot the last team. The last team.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Rocket and Thor. Before.
Actually, wow. Apparently, we only covered one team period. The one that went to New York, and then the two that had to go back because they split into another group because Ant-Man had to go back. All right, so yeah, there's two other groups. So we did Nebula and Peter Quill. We didn't do Asgard with Rocket and Thor. Oh my God, that was hilarious. It was very well put together and it ended in a very good way. Yeah. But it was so silly. He's just like so full of doubt. It's just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he's just like, snap out of it. Rocket just slaps him.
So funny.
He's just like, I can do this. I can do this. And Rocket goes forward and he's just like, I can't do this. And then he just disappears. And eventually he runs into his mother. You know, and his mother, you know, being raised by witches, like she doesn't buy any of his bullshit. She knows it's just she knows
it's actually him from the future. Yeah. And he's definitely has had a hard time living from the future.
Yeah, the years have not been kind to you.
No.
And as he leaves, it's just like, eat a salad.
Indeed, because of him and his beer gut.
Yeah. But it's funny, she gives him some really good advice. It's just like, don't try to be the man you're expected to be. Be the man you want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he does follow that through in the end and goes off on his own, gives the crown to someone else. Yeah. And it's funny. So Rocket has to get the stone by himself. So he pretty much stabs her with the tool. I don't even know what it is. It extracts the stone from her body, and then he's chased, and then they both go home. So there was that one, and then there was the Soul Stone, you know, from Red Skull, from the original Captain America. And essentially they realize that they have to sacrifice something. And they fight over who it was going to be. And
of course.
And because so many people, like, there is a Black Widow film coming up, apparently. And so people are just like, oh, it's got to be Hawkeye that dies. And to be honest, I thought it was going to be him too. I thought it was going to be him. I don't know what you were expecting in that scene. Like, who are you expecting to get it?
Truly, to be honest, I'm like, I wasn't quite sure who to say at most. But then, I mean, when it came down to it, I'm like, if it was me in the same situation, of course, as Black Widow, I mean, I would have done the same thing. Because, I mean, she her family was pretty much them, the Avengers, and everybody there that she's been working with. She had nobody else, but he did technically. So if they were to succeed, he would have somebody there otherwise.
Yeah,
But,
that's one of the twists that I thought worked out.
Yeah, and I mean that's
For
why
me,
for
and I
me
thought it
that
was
I was
good.
like I was okay with the situation with her, and I was like, okay, so yeah, I felt like it was gonna be her after that.
You know, but it was a real tearjerker. Like
Yeah.
neither of us really cried.
No.
But we did, you know, get that, you know, lump in the throat, maybe the eyes welling up a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, there were a lot of moments like that, and so he got it because she sacrificed herself.
Yeah, and it was good.
Yeah, and then
they came together.
They all came back, but of course the nebula that came back wasn't our nebula.
Yeah.
And so while they were doing that, she pretty much goes and, you know, uses the time machine to transport Thanos' ship to the present day.
Mm-hmm.
And Banner's the one to collect it because because it uses gamma radiation, and that's pretty much what he's flooded with anyway.
Yes.
Which creates the Hulk, so it was like he's made for that.
Mm-hmm.
So he does it, and he uses it to restore those that Thanos, you know, snapped away,
and disappeared into pretty much dust then.
You know, but the ship comes through and then attacks the facility, and it destroys the machine. So pretty much it's a one-way trip.
Mm-hmm.
And had my cord wrapped around my foot there, and so they're dealing with that, and his whole army. He brings his whole army to the front, and there's just this huge battle. Like I loved this battle. Like at first it was very compact. It was only you know, a few of them versus him. You know, and he kicks ass. Like he has none of the stones, and he is still annihilating them. I mean, he's still stronger.
Kind of there on their own end. You see everybody else getting their ass kicked.
Yeah, using his double-bladed like sword. It's almost like a helicopter propeller almost. But yeah, it's super cool. Like I like how he uses it and twirls it and all that. Like I think it looks really
cool.
Awesome how it does. And he fights him off, and he's about to take the glove.
Almost, yeah.
But let's see. Oh gosh, this is about the point where I start to like I lose track of things because everything happens all at once at this point. So yeah, Thanos overpowers him. But okay, so now Nebula eventually convinces, you know, Gamora. But she was always trying to stop him. Yeah. She hated him.
She didn't,
You know, and so she was always you knew she was going to turn.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Nebula, she hadn't hit that point yet, so she had to be killed. And that's another thing, another plot hole, which is just like, you know, if past Nebula is dead, then why is future Nebula not dead?
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it kind of explained again with the whole timelines and alternate paths and all that, but it still is super weird, and it was something I was not expecting, and it didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, I definitely.
I mean, I liked it. I like Nebula as a character. I do. But that whole concept was just like, okay, so we're just not going to kill her because we want her in more movies. Okay.
Indeed.
That's right. Let's ignore physics for this one thing. And yeah, while all this is going on, like he overpowers everyone who's after him. Like who's left? It's Stark, War Machine, Hulk. Hulk is barely even utilized in the battle.
Yeah, he really is.
Like, really. And that's again another reason why I was not a fan of it, because there's no hulking out. It's it just wasn't the Hulk. Like, I hope that they fix it in some point and realize that it just wasn't working. But I don't know. Like I said, I think it was good for his comic relief. And I like the whole thing, like he finally came to terms with himself. But at the same time, you know, Hulk is around just for those epic battles. You know, he needs to be around for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty much at this point, he almost has the gauntlet, but then Doctor Strange appears because now everyone is back.
Back. Yeah, I mean,
Which, you know, and again, rush time, everyone, like freaking everyone.
Yeah.
There's like
Avengers,
wizards everywhere. It's just like, where did all these people come from? And then there's Asgardians, which is weird. Which is weird because, yeah, Wakandans.
And
like,
yeah.
You see this epic entry of all these people, and it barely shows a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like, you see so much more of just the heroes fighting against Thanos and his lieutenants than you do any of, like, soldier versus soldiers and the beasts and all that.
Yeah.
And also just some of the weird things, like, where did all these Asgardians come from? Like, do they just keep their armor and their weapons? Were they just prepared? Did it take... And so many of them, too. Like, this was a small town they're living on. Like, like what is implied? Like, he killed half of them at first. Like, did he kill another half of them when he snapped his fingers? Yeah. Is there only a quarter of them left? If so, that's still a shit ton of Asgardians that walk through that portal.
Indeed.
You know, not to mention all the wizards. There was not that many wizards. I mean, there were people, a lot of people got training.
Yeah.
But they never fully followed through on wizardry to, you know, protect the timelines. And, yeah, I don't know. It was one of those things where it's just like they got the cinematic effect and it was awesome. But it's just like, where did all these people come from?
Yeah.
And how did they get ready in only a half an hour? Yeah.
Definitely true.
It was a little strange. And what I do like is that the only person who could go toe-to-toe with Thanos was the Scarlet Witch. Like, everyone else got annihilated. Like, Captain Marvel, she did well at first, and she was, like, prevented him from snapping his finger because he got the glove on his hand.
Yeah.
And he finally realizes he can't overpower her, so he takes the Power Stone, I think, out of it and takes it in his hand, punches her. Like, you don't see her for the rest of the fight until the funeral at the end.
Yeah.
Like, she's just vanished. I thought she was... I don't think I thought she was dead, but I definitely thought that she was, like, just out of it.
Gone for right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. She was knocked out to a point where, yeah, she's not.
Yeah, because you never see her. I mean, whether or not she's rejoined the battle, you don't know because it never shows it. Like, she was just, her part in that was over. And I was really glad about that because I did not want her to. I did not want it to be like freaking Justice League, where everyone's getting their ass kicked until Superman shows up.
No. I definitely understand and get that too.
Yeah, but Captain America, he also did a great job. And it was one of the greatest moments in Marvel history for me. When he summoned Mjolnir.
Yes, I definitely.
The hammer. It's just like he is worthy.
That was awesome.
And how he wields it against Thanos, and it was.
He has the shield, and of course, the hammer. Going at him. It was awesome.
Yeah, but eventually, like, he just overpowers him. He knocks Mjolnir out of his hand, and he rips his shield apart. Yeah. Like, he just literally slices it with that blade of his, and it looks so amazing. But yeah, Scarlet Witch comes along, and she has him with her powers, and he's just like ripping his armor off and strangling her. Like, it's to the point where you're like, I can't win. So he just orders the ship to do like a bombardment. Yeah. Just like, what about our troops? It's just like, it doesn't matter. So they do. That's how he gets away from that. And he finally does, like, kind of overpower her. And something you mentioned, like, again, with some of the people not getting, like, a lot of screen time, like, you were always a big fan, we talked about this, a big fan of Groot.
I thought he was so cute. I absolutely loved him. But yes, I thought that really was sad because I mean there was the point I mean earlier, of course, where Rocket was when they're talking about where I mean those that they had lost, and of course Rocket was mentioning those that he had lost, that it was his family too, and of course he considered Groot one of them. And of course when I heard that, I'm just like, oh okay, yes, of course there's going to be more Groot, and I'm just excited. I mean he did come back, of course. He was there. You did see him in a few scenes, but he only had one line in that entire time, and that was really sad. And you didn't see as anything between Rocket and Groot. And when you see him before in the other movies, it's just there's a connection between them, and it's oh, it's fun. And it just that part was just not there.
Yeah.
Which was sad, but it was good that I mean he was back, of course, with the rest of them, but. But yes, I definitely would agree.
Yes, and then after that, Thanos is able to get the gauntlet again, and essentially he comes to the decision that destroying half of all life won't exist because the people that remember will not move on. So he's going to destroy the whole universe and recreate it in his image. And then he'll rest. And so they obviously have to stop him. But pretty much Stark gets the stones from him because it's no longer the Infinity Gauntlet. It's Stark Tech. So he's able to, after he grabs Thanos, he's able to incorporate the stones into his own arm. And he snaps his finger, and Thanos and his army just wink out of existence.
Turns into dust.
Yep. But the power of the stones like overwhelms, and it just fries half of his body.
Yeah.
So he's dying.
Yeah, which is sad.
Yeah. I liked when Spider-Man came up for that.
And
like at first, like Spider-Man comes up and he's just like hugging him. He's just like, barely it's been 5 years. It's just like, okay, yeah. This is nice. You know, really funny, but yeah.
In the battle, I mean, he was cool too. I mean, definitely there was some
like
scenes with him in there.
Spider-Man had the gauntlet for a bit.
Yes, he did.
Marvel had the gauntlet for a little bit. I mean, it's so much happened in that battle. It's hard to actually recount everything.
Seriously.
Like I'm trying really hard, guys. I'm sorry if I'm struggling, but gosh, this movie had a lot.
But yes, after everything that happened to Stark there, and of course there at the end where
and Pepper, like.
Well, I mean, still with Spider-Man there. I mean, he was just overwhelmed. It's just like, oh my gosh, no, please, kind of almost in a way.
Yeah.
You can't be leaving. You can't go, kind of in a way. But he doesn't really.
He doesn't interact.
He doesn't interact really
with him as much as he does his wife. I mean, makes
understandable.
Makes sense, but I mean, it's kind of weird because he does like sort of see him as like a son.
True, but I mean, at that point he is dying too, and it's like, well, depending on what you have left in you, do you want to waste that on just him? I mean, you may have feelings for him too, but if you had a choice, would you rather do it with your wife or with someone you thought of just as your son or something like that? Which, I mean, I can kind of see in its own way there, in a way. But it was interesting and still good, but still very sad.
Yeah. And then obviously we go to the funeral.
Yes. And then
which was very sad. Like, were you in any way upset that there wasn't, something mentioned of Black Widow? Like
a bit.
Like, I mean, honestly, even if it was earlier, like, even just at least a picture or something.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I mean,
they did have a scene where they showed mourning, but.
Yeah, but it really wasn't as much as definitely what they did with, of course, Tony Stark there at the end, and everybody being there, and of course, showing memorial for him, and just giving respect, of course, to him and everything that he did. But I mean, technically, she didn't really have anything really there. So that part was a little sad.
Yeah, it was totally sad. But one thing I want to talk to, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but the people who were there, I mean, you notice, Hawkeye and his family,
Yeah.
you know, Pepper, her family, you know, everyone else, you know, together. But then there was this sort of like young-looking adult by himself in the back. It was before it went to, you know, the people on the porch. I did not recognize who that was at all, because you saw Bucky.
Yeah.
You know, he was with you know, War Machine and all that, and all those. This person was just literally by himself. I did not recognize him. I didn't know who he was.
I really didn't recognize him either, truly, to be honest.
Yeah, so I don't know who that was or what relevance it has to it, but you know, we'll see.
Yeah.
And then we go into the point where Captain America goes back in time to obviously return the stones. He has a moment with Bucky, and I was really hoping that, like, I knew that this was going to be his last film, that Chris Evans' Captain America was over, and he passed the torch. So, I mean, essentially what he does is he goes back in time, but instead of going back, he goes back further in time, stays there, and then comes back as an old man after living his life with the woman that he loves.
Yeah.
And refuses to tell anyone about it.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. And he hands his
passes his shield to Sam Wilson.
Yeah, Sam Wilson, who is I'm trying to find that real quick.
Isn't he trying to remember too.
Oh, come on, really? It doesn't it has to have him. Okay, we'll just do this.
That.
All right, it is Falcon.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like,
which kind of blew my mind a little bit. I was hoping he would give it to his friend Bucky, you know, but I mean, I guess he's going to become his own, you know, character and all that. And I mean, I guess to be fair, both of those characters in the comics did hold the shield at some point. But I don't know, it just kind of threw me off. It's like, what did he really do?
Yeah.
But I mean, don't get me wrong, in the battle, he was awesome. Like, there was a point in time where there was a flying thing, and he freaking jumps on it and just stabs through with his wings. You know, there were a lot of sick moments in that battle.
It was definitely an intense situation, and it was just awesome. I mean, they definitely did a good job, I think, with all the CGI graphics, everything, and just overall.
Oh yeah, it did not look, and you can tell like how far CGI has come from 2012, the original Avengers.
I know.
Like it looked great then, but oh my gosh, now
it's definitely, definitely even better.
So yeah, like I said, this is a great must-see movie. This is like totally just like getting a must-see. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely.
You know,
would.
but again, there are a few things that I personally didn't like, and a few things that just didn't make sense. And again, if you're someone who's just seeing this as a standalone film, you probably will be confused with a lot of the characters. You were with a couple of ones.
Yeah, again, but it's not fully surprising. Again, with my memory situation,
but again,
unfortunately.
Referring to it as a standalone film, like, do you need to see the other ones to see it? Like Infinity War, you didn't really need to, which is why it got such a high score.
Yeah, that one not necessarily, but I mean, this one it's can be a little bit more confusing if you don't know.
Yeah, and there was not a lot of FaceTime for certain people.
Yeah.
I mean, they did do a good job. Don't get me wrong. With what they did a great job, but and then the end with Thor joining the Guardians, just like we will go here.
Star-Lord.
It's just like you're acting like you're in charge, but this is my ship. I know. And they're tough. Like, do you want a knife fight, or do you want some assault rifles, blasters?
Indeed.
Just like that's not necessary. We know who's in charge. It's you, of course. Indeed. But there was no after credits scene, which kind of blew my mind. I mean,
they had lots of screenshots and just like, of course, showing. I mean, the
characters and even their signatures, like the actor's signature.
Like that.
Yeah, it was cool. I loved how they did the
how they did credits. That. I mean, going into the credits, but yeah, there's nothing there, pretty much at the end for it. So
yeah. So again, must see, an almost perfect movie, but just a few picadillos brings it down 1 point. So 9 out of 10. Indeed. But go see this movie. This movie is awesome.
True. Very true.
All right, and I think that's it for us. We will catch you later.